GBN Television News at 7, a pulse on all things Grenadian. Look out for our new features through expanded synergies with our media partners in Barbados, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Trinidad, and beyond. Capturing the latest in news, sports, weather, and entertainment. Credible, informative. Thank you for making us number one. News at 7, live, Monday to Friday on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11. K105.5 and 105.9, Hot 98.5 and 98.7, GBN Television Facebook page and YouTube channel, and www.gbn.gd. GBN, with you anywhere and everywhere. Good morning to you, Grenada, Carriacou, PD, Monty, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean. It is Friday. It is the 22nd day of the month of January. Oh, we've come that far. Just under 3 weeks ago, we were talking about Christmas, weren't we? And we were trying to challenge ourselves as to whether or not we're ready to deal with the demands and askings of the year 2021. Well, whether or not you got a positive response, whether or not it was affirmative, 2021 is here, and we're 22 days in, and if you haven't figured it out as yet, I'm sorry. It is still the point, and welcome to our listeners that have joined us, or viewers that is, on GBN's television, Channel 7 and Channel 11. Channel 20 if you're in cable. Those of you that's chimed in via the World Wide Web at www.gbn.gd, via the YouTube channel, our Facebook page. I'm Joseph Cadore, and welcome to another episode of To The Point. My guest this morning is no stranger to the GBN. I don't think he's a stranger to anybody. He is president of the Grenada Poultry Association, Jason Phillip. And this morning, as I've intimated since morning, we'll be taking an in-depth look. First, we do a review, and then we take an in-depth analysis, consideration as to where we are in the poultry sector. We've continued to be in a drive to eat local. We've continued to have the conversation about food security here at home. But where are we? What are the challenges that the industry has faced, is facing, and will continue to face? But however, in the midst of adversity and challenge, we're committed to all and everything that is always hope. What is the formula to turn the corner? I want to say good morning, Jason. Welcome to the program. Thanks for having accepted the invitation. How are you?
Thank you. Good morning, Joseph, and thank you for having me. Let me just take the opportunity to say good morning to everyone, all of the viewers at GBN, and also say Happy New Year to everyone.
Let us start the conversation by first taking a couple of minutes to review the year that was, 2020, the COVIDous year, and the impact it has had on the industry.
Yes, well, 2020 has been one for the history books. It has been more than just a challenge. It has been a life-changing and I think history-changing event. So many things happened throughout that year, but I must say ultimately that we are all still standing strong. We are all together, and as one nation, we stand ready for the future. I want to just take this opportunity to encourage everyone and ask everyone to continue to be strong. I know we have friends and families in other countries who are currently suffering a far worse fate than we are faced with here in Grenada. And, you know, my heart and condolences goes out to persons who have lost loved ones, friends and family, persons who are currently suffering themselves, you know, on behalf of myself, my family, and, you know, the entire organization. You know, our prayers are with you, and, you know, our heartfelt best wishes go out there. 2020, in no form or fashion, has been an easy one where farming is concerned. I think across the board, there has been many things that have negatively affected the functioning of farmers, the development of farmers, and the basic daily operation. Many things has happened, and, you know, significantly so. Many things from the association was put in place and coordinated between the government officials, between stakeholders, and our farmers to help us survive 2020. So we consider 2020 to be the year of survival. And we are thankful that we have been able to stand firm throughout that period and that we continue to survive. So we consider 2020 to be a milestone because our goals were met by surviving the period. We want to also say that we are very grateful for the support of the general public, who overwhelmingly came out and purchased from our local farmers, supported the local produce, and continued to keep the coffers running while our farmers was going through a very, very, very trying period. So we want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of the general public who continue to go out there and support and still continue to do so. So we are very, very grateful for this.
One of the questions I was longing to ask you as we get into the conversation, and I had a difficulty fathoming it, was the issue of the shortage of eggs during the Christmas. And for me, it comes on the backdrop that prior to, for the greater part of the second half of the year, as you say in local parlance, egg was lap and cut. You saw eggs being sold in every corner, back in vehicles, in the lagoon, all over. But then we got to Christmas, and all of a sudden, I'm saying, okay, at least not this year, everybody's got eggs for cakes. But that was a different story, though. Why so?
Yes,
explain.
Well, I want to give, let's reflect a little bit. In mid-2019, I would have done an interview and we would have discussed the issue of eggs and how their availability lie. And at that point in time, we did express that we did make the clarion call to all of our farmers to produce. The public was clamoring for it. We did not want to have an issue where shortage was concerned. And so our farmers responded to that. And for the Christmas period of 2019, eggs during the Christmas was lap and cut. I want to also remind that during that period, we did not have any major effects from the COVID-19. We had the hotels functioning, everything SGU was still functioning. So the complement of consumption was still there. And yet for all, we had more than exceeded the need that Grenada had for eggs. So we have to give a hats off to our farmers because farmers are very resilient. And when they are called upon to function, our farmers take their responsibility very seriously. However, we remember that the COVID-19 situation really started affecting us here in Grenada around March. We were given buzzes about it during the February period when we had independence and all of that. We started getting a little buzz about things potentially are going to be changing coming up. But during March was when we really saw the major effect, with the country subsequently moving to a complete shutdown. And then we had various industries like the tourism sector, we had the St. George's University, and all other functioning areas such as the hospitality industry, subsequently literally shutting down overnight. One can appreciate that coming from a situation where you just use means that these areas would have been major consumers of the product. Now farmers, many of the farmers who play tourism sector and all of the area, sure.
It's just about 90 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. We seem to be experiencing some technical difficulties with our guests' connectivity as it is. We'll take a quick commercial break, though. Take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back with you on Classic in the Morning Time.
Exploring the beaten trails, discovering uncharted terrain, connecting with people and places, giving a renewed appreciation for our flora and fauna. We are out and about, from the crystal white sands of Grandin's Beach to the cascading and majestic temple of Concord Falls, the meandering of the St. John's River, or our undulating mountain ranges. We are Out and About. Saturdays, live on GBN Television, our Facebook page, and our YouTube channel. Out and About, rediscovering the untamed beauty of Spice Country.
Grenada's chief medical officer has ordered that all confirmed positive COVID-19 individuals, their contacts, and members of their household must remain in quarantine or isolation for 14 days. Anyone who fails to comply with this order will be in breach of the Public Health COVID-19 Regulations 2020 and is guilty of an offense. Upon summary conviction, that person will be liable to a penalty of up to $10,000. A message from the Ministry of Health.
Past the hour of 9 o'clock in the morning time. We do apologize for those technical glitches, but that's what it is. Life as it is. If anything goes wrong, it goes wrong at the worst possible time. My guest, for those that's just joining me, is President of the Grenada Poultry Association, Jason Phillip. And Jason, we continue just getting right back to where we were, where you were offering us an explanation as to the reason for when we had a bountiful presence of eggs for 2019, came 2020 when everybody thought, I'm seeing eggs all over the place. How possible? We got to crunch time when it's needed most. You're offering the explanation as to why there was a shortage.
Yes. So primarily what would have happened is that with several of the farmers who had stable markets through the hospitality and tourism sector and the SGU, their eggs now became available on the local market, which became a tad bit too much for local consumption. And as such, again, eggs became lap and cut during the period of the lockdown and shortly thereafter. Now, we have to keep in mind that farmers have to purchase feed to keep feeding their birds. They have to maintain their farms. All of this costs cash. It is not credit, it is all cash. Farmers do not have the luxury of walking into any organization or any supplier and say, can you credit me this for 1 month? It doesn't happen. Farmers are expected to pay cash up front. And with the shortage of their turnover and them not being able to adequately support their farms, we have a situation where many farmers had to downsize their farms just to survive, and many had to completely shut down their operation pending things getting better. So shortly, about 2 months leading into the Christmas, we had so many farmers who just could not keep up with the volumes that they had because there's really no major support to really bolster farmers up to help them, whether it be through the cost of feeds or whether it be through just the maintenance of their infrastructure and so. And so we had a sudden shortage of eggs because farmers got to that breaking point and could not maintain. So that is the story of the shortage of eggs coming into the Christmas of this year. And as we begin the year of 2020, we're already seeing some of the strains relating to farmers who still do not yet have sufficient areas where they can retail or they can wholesale their product out of. And so it's still, the cost of doing business is still a very significant one. And it is the major constraint at this point for why farmers cannot do more than they would like to do at this point.
With that being said, and it certainly sets the backdrop as we've sat thinking forward, 2021, COVID is still a present threat. The factors that have given rise to the challenges you face in 2020, they are still present with us. With that being said, where to from here? What is the plan for the industry?
Yes. Well, that is a very deep and complex question, and it has quite a very deep and challenging answer towards it. The reality for us is that our major markets as a country, which is heavily based on tourism, is the United States of America. And by no part, we have the United Kingdom and parts of Europe, which are major support for bodies on the ground are concerned. Now, I am very pleased that the United States have taken somewhat of a turn in terms of the political circumstances. And seemingly, the new president seems to have an agenda on how the country will move forward addressing the serious conditions that they have there currently with the COVID-19. We're very pleased to know that there are vaccines which are now available and which will help stem the tide at some point in time. However, until the United States and the larger countries get their populations in check, we will not see a direct return to business as usual here in Grenada. And even though we do have personnel coming in, it is very limited because of all of the testing requirements and all those processes that have to go through. So the immediate future for poultry in Grenada is one of significant challenge when it comes to the volumes to be produced, because consumption is what drives production. And when you do not have that significance of consumption, you have to be very considerate in terms of how you go forward with your production. Needless to say, that does not mean that the industry is coming to a grinding halt. As would have been mentioned in the budget, there are significant investors, local investors, who are making moves towards establishing, developing, and building significant poultry facilities here in Grenada. These facilities are now in various stages of development, and this is geared primarily to increasing the availability of local meat and produce on the market. So we are very happy that investors have bitten the bullets in that way, especially during these difficult times, to invest in the industry. Of course, there are many challenges surrounding the development of large-scale production. There are many challenges as it reflects towards what does this mean to the small and medium-sized farmers, and how does the public continue to support all, and there being a strong movement for everyone benefiting moving forward. So we do have our challenges. It is not an easy task. But we are hopeful because of the local resilience in the investment in the sector. We are very much so looking forward to a very strong, possibly late 2021 and into 2022, providing that all visitors return in record numbers.
President Phillip, the reality of in any industry that economies of scale is always a factor. It supports the investors, those with deeper pockets. In Grenada, most of the farmers, as we say, they support their industry, what they do from hand to mouth, literally. They don't have a backup of capital. We've making mention now of investors, and I'm assuming investors that are coming with deep pockets. And as I said, the issue of economies of scale would certainly play in their advantage. What is there that acts as a buffer? Because you hinted to it. The smaller farmers, what is there as a buffer within the association to allow them to survive?
Yes. Well, currently, as one of our major challenges, there are lots of limitations, both legally. There are limitations in terms of establishments, in terms of what is the established practice, because nothing of this nature has ever occurred in Grenada where poultry is concerned. We do have individuals who are very passionate, regardless to what scale they are investing at. Everyone is very passionate on the whole movement of getting poultry to the local consumers and ensuring that it is a local product. However, we are, as we speak, working with all stakeholders, both the small, medium-sized, and the large investors, to see if we could strike a middle balance. Of course, not every negotiation and every discussion is an easy one or maybe a tasteful one at times, but we are working and we are negotiating And we're very hopeful that with the support of the government of Grenada through the Ministry of Agriculture, that as we bring everyone together, that we would be able to work with something that is amicable for all and something that would be reasonable. I must admit that roughly about 70% of the poultry producers in Grenada are currently small-scale farmers. We're talking a significance of persons who are subsistent farmers. This means that this value that they get from what they produce literally pays their bills. It sends the kids to school, it puts the food on the table, and it is a very significant effort that they put out to ensure that they can survive. Now, we have to also ensure that when the larger players come on the market, that it is not a situation where if small producers decide that we do not want to either do business with you or we want to maintain what we're doing in some form or fashion, that we have to find a way to ensure that persons survive and persons still have an access to a market. So we are discussing these very difficult and very complex issues. Of course, what works in one country may not necessarily work in the next, though we may be geographically positioned similarly, but our socioeconomic circumstances always carry quite a very amount of variances. So we are being very hopeful that everyone remains very open to significant discussions and really putting plans together. This also brings the point up that we've been speaking many months now regarding the poultry policy and the role that it will play in terms of guiding the industry. Of course, our goodly senator and the minister, through the cabinet of the government, we are hopeful that strong recommendations can be made in short order to improve upon what was already established, to help guide a proper implementation plan so that we can start seeing various areas of the policy being enacted. The reality here is that we really all do need guidelines in order to function so that the industry overall could be successful.
But give us an appreciation, though, Jason. Give us an appreciation of what are some of the core elements of that policy and how it applies in guiding the industry.
So the policy primarily it is geared towards highlighting the areas that are needed for development to make the poultry industry successful. So it speaks towards production, it speaks towards other areas in terms of to boost investor confidence and areas to show in terms of where value can be added so that one can really put the products in line and make things function. The policy, it bridges the gap of the governmental side of things. It bridges the gap in terms of the private sector, and it also bridges the gap in terms of investor and foreign investment and so. So the reality of this tool, the policy works as a tool to guide the development of the entire industry. Of course, in its initial draft form and then subsequently submitted to the government of Grenada for review, there are still areas which the policy in its current incarnation does not necessarily speak very deeply to. So these are the areas which we need to specialize into. We need to also clarify those areas so that when instructions are given, everyone is clear in terms of the pathway that it has to follow. And in the event that there are disputes, which is inevitable with anything, there are also clear guidelines as to how disputes can be settled and how things can work amicably. One of my concerns at this point is that as larger facilities are being developed and so, the reality is that we are currently dependent on the laws of the land, if disputes arise, to have them settled. We know that small farmers with a consistent size, if a matter, and you have to take someone to court, these matters can take months, even years to resolve. And a small farm cannot afford to take a large entity to court. So as the association, we will be calling a meeting with all of our farmers very soon, and we will be coordinating. We need to hear from our farmers. We also need to speak to our farmers on many issues, and we will be working together as a communal group so that we can address many of our concerns and some of the problems that we now face.
And I'm assuming, based on what you've just articulated, that the association as it is now poised, maybe the time is right for a total revamping, cooperatives, seems to be, well, let me ask you, even before we get to that, in terms of the association, the structure as it is, am I to assume that it is all man on his own, or are you looking now at maybe joint venture, everybody coming under one umbrella as a cooperative, so that you can, when you whatever arrangements it is done as a unit, everybody's cat least could reasonably be able to be cushioned by the economic impact if they come together?
Well, I must say that the association has had its fair share of challenges as an entity over the years. And as we currently sit, we do have our fair share of difficulties and challenges, notwithstanding that we are currently working on those things. We have worked diligently to improve our services, improve our interaction, and improve our management practices when it comes to how we overall manage things as a body. There has been mention and there has been talk about the idea of cooperatives and other types of ventures that can help solidify the functioning of the business of the farmers. I want to strongly say that we are focused on the business and the welfare of our farmers. We are not in the private sector to necessarily compete against the private sector in that way, but it is all about our farmers and ensuring that they survive and that they thrive in the poultry environment. So we are definitely going to be raising several of these things in our upcoming meeting. Again, as a body, we cannot sit at the helm as myself and dictate to our members exactly what the future is going to be. We need to have that interaction. And as I said before, we have raised, other members and persons for our field have raised the matter of cooperatives, and there are a number of other types of ventures which have been raised so as to help better and significantly improve the way how we're able to do business and develop our farms.
27 minutes gone past the hour in the morning time. It's To The Point. And my guest this morning is President of the Grenada Poultry Association, Jason Phillip. We're discussing all things related to the sector. We take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back, right here on To The Point.
Now we can stay safe while at the same time reducing our budget to maintain a clean and safe environment at our home, school, office, church, or even on the bus. Fortune Foods has gone a long way to source premium products that are at least 30 to 50% less than other brands. That's right, 30 to 50% cheaper than other brands. We have a multi-purpose 80% strength liquid sanitizer for cleaning surfaces that is also safe on hands, as well as 70 to 75% gel sanitizers available in 1 gallon and smaller sizes. Plus, when you buy in bulk, you save even more. Right now, every dollar counts. Be wise. Sanitize with Fortune Foods' range of sanitizing products.
Distributed by Fortune Foods Company Limited, Tempe, St. George's. Telephone 435-2247.
Protect yourself and our community from COVID-19. Wash your hands frequently with soap and water for at least 20 seconds. If soap and water are not available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer with at least 70% alcohol. Use a tissue when blowing your nose, sneezing, or coughing. Immediately discard the tissue properly and wash or sanitize your hands. Avoid close contact with people who are sick. Let's do our part to ensure that each and every Grenadian remains healthy. To stay up to date, visit the Government of Grenada's webpage or the Ministry of Health's Facebook page. For more information, contact the Ministry of Health's hotline by calling 53-VIRUS. This has been a public service announcement brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
And we're getting ready to rejoin. Well, they're actually here. Welcome back to The Point. My guest this morning, for those of you that's just joining me, is President of the Grenada Poultry Association, Jason Phillip. Jason, we've done the review. We looked at the structure. We're looking at the policy, how the policy is intended to guide the way forward. In more recent times, one of the latest stories, as it relates to what's happening in the poultry sector, is the imports of chicken from Belize. Many have argued, yes, while they support the whole conversation of regional trade, they ask themselves the question, why then do we need to be importing from a regional entity? So the question is whether or not the association is really and truly in a position to sustain the local market as it is.
Well, just this one is it's a very touchy area, if I can put it that way. And I can speak towards the feedback that I have gotten from our members and from farmers far and wide. There is a huge concern that as we are now in the midst of developing, and we're literally as a startup, growing our local industry, that as you rightfully said, we as individuals do support regional trade. However, this particular situation has come at a most inopportune time because we are currently in the process of already having to compete against the imported meats that come in from international sources. And now we're having a situation where one of our more developed nations within our CARICOM bloc, they have already been set up for many years. They have already received certifications through CARICOM for many things. And it is now behooved in us that we were not approached, we were not consulted. There was no interaction with the association as it relates to the importation of this product coming out of Belize. Now, as I said, we do love our brothers and sisters in Belize, and we do want the best for everyone within the CARICOM bloc. But we also have to look forward to what is happening on the ground locally. And this adds to the to not just the confusion, but it also adds to the technicality in terms of how is it that our local industry is going to be flexible to deal and to survive in its initial incarnation. And so we are not necessarily supportive, and we are not happy that no consultation had happened. We are not happy that no information was forthcoming. And we learned about this incident just the same way the rest of the country did, through the news. And, it was a press release that came from the government of Belize. And so, we do expect that our leaders who guide our future and who, are there to protect us, that, more consultation should happen so that our perspective and our point of view can be put into the mix when decisions are being made. I'd like to highlight...
Jason, but you would reasonably think that given the current construct of things, where there's a conversation with protecting and supporting local industries, there's a call for the growth and expansion of the agricultural sector, because poultry is one arm of it. But it seems as though this is totally a counterproductive move. Is it that government doesn't appreciate the virtue and value, or is it that this is just lip service that's been given to the sector as it is, agriculture on a whole?
Well, I would say that I would leave that to be answered by the minister and the personnel at the ministries who are responsible for the importation, allowing the importation. From what I have read so far, is that this would have been a transaction that would have been cited by the Ministry of Trade, and there would have been some form of interaction in terms of with the entities in Belize. So it is a counterproductive move, though we are supportive in terms of doing trade, but we as a country, we are a very small country, and we are filled with challenges at this time. And to stimulate and spur the growth and maintain investor confidence in our small local sector, we need to really operate more with consultations. We do know that takes a little bit of time, but consultation is going to save us from making big mistakes going down the road. I was just raising that, similarly, Grenada has not been able to get our honey into Trinidad and Tobago. And even though Grenada has been fighting to get that done through CSME for years, we have been blocked by Trinidad because Trinidad has cited that Grenada's honey would be would be imported at the detriment to the local honey industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Not just because of quality, but also because of volume. And so, as a small country, we are being blocked in CSME to allow trade into a large country. And here we have opened the doors to one of the large countries in our CSME block to bring in a product that we are ourselves currently producing. Now, I want to say that over the past 4 months in particular, there has been a glut of produced local chicken on the market. Supermarkets have been inundated by our farmers who have been supplying fresh meat. And I have received many calls from significant farmers who are saying to me, Mr. Phillip, we cannot get market to sell our local meat. Mm-hmm. So in this interim here, that we're now adding more supply on top of what is currently there, it is kind of putting a bit too much straw on the back of the camel at this point.
There are many, Philip, that would argue, and that's where the argument, I think, it resides, that they've argued that the imported products very often is much cheaper than local, given the high production cost there is. Is that a reasonable argument? That, listen, at the end of the day, that maybe it balances the argument that government is saying, well, listen, local production is too high. Maybe why not? We need to keep our people viable. We need, of course, to secure the interest of our people. Let's go to an external market. Is that a reasonable argument? And if so, how? If not, how do you counter it?
Well, it is a reasonable argument, but it comes back to the perspective for which you stand. And again, everything in life comes from perspective. Now, if the development of our people and the development of our industries are a strong priority for our leaders, then we would work through those challenges. No industrialized country ever had it easy in the interim stages of anything. And so sacrifices had to be made. Very bold ideas had to be thought of and had to be implemented so that today you have a successful, thriving, long-term industry. And that is all we want here. We want to have the opportunity to get to that stage. And the only way we can do so is if we sit down and we put all of our cards on the table, be real to what our reality is here in Grenada, and work towards a unified future. Now, we do all want the same thing for the long term, but I think the process to get there is where we all have different concepts.
Okay, this one for me, we have a caller online. Classic Q Live, go ahead, please.
Yes, sir. Good morning, gentlemen.
Yes, good morning. Go ahead, please.
The question of what Trinidad is doing to us as it relates to trade in CARICOM. If I had my way, I would have had a referendum and have a Grexit. We can survive effectively outside of CARICOM if we do not trade with them. Our Grenada is no longer a part of CARICOM, and I'm very serious as a patriotic Grenadian. Secondly, the question of poultry production. I think there need to be an amalgamation of all the farmers. Remember, Grenada is a small market, okay? A critical factor is the cost. Once what a culture I've seen becoming, more prevalent, and it's becoming prolific among business people in Grenada. If you invest Monday morning, you want all the returns on your investment Tuesday afternoon, which cannot work. Okay? The cost of production is another factor, but the sale, the final product, the local meat is being sold too expensive. Remember unemployment. Remember we are poor. So if I'm getting the same product cheaper, I am going to go for the cheaper one. But we need to educate our people about the importance of eating what we produce, especially poultry, that, may not have the growth hormone, which has adverse health effect on our people, etc. I want to suggest, bro, that the poultry farmers come together and have one, for example, have it like a cooperative and deal with mass production, and with that might be able to solve the problem. But Grenada is reluctant to ban product from CARICOM states and CSME states unless we make this bold patriotic move and have Grexit. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Your thoughts?
Yes, the caller has made some very valuable points and some very valid points. We do support what he's saying. However, it goes beyond just the fact of forming a cooperative and putting everyone under one banner. Our realities is that we have situation of the cost of electricity, power generation. It is a factor in production. Also, we have to look in terms of one of the main areas, which is the cost of feeds, which is virtually between 60 to 70% the cost and expense derived in the production of livestock. And so we have had, where both entities are concerned, a monopoly literally existing in our state. And true to no fault of ours as farmers, this is what our leaders have put us into in terms of where we're at. And the only ones who can take us out of this situation so that we can have a more viable option of production is our leaders. So just as how the electricity sector has now been liberalized, we also need the feed industry to be liberalized. We're not asking for anyone to be closed. We don't want anyone not to be able to function, but we want to give farmers the opportunity to have choice, and so that we can choose who we do business with and how we better make our business more profitable and more feasible so that the consumers can have better quality and better pricing.
All that thought that we have a caller on the line. We lost the caller. 435-2041. That is the number on the inside. You can also submit your contribution via the WhatsApp portal, 435-2041. Back to you. No, okay, let me just take that caller one time. Classic, good morning, you're live.
Yes, good morning, Joseph, and good morning to Mr. Phillip.
Go ahead.
I want to say that very often when we think about cheaper, we don't think about things like solidarity, we don't even think about health, we don't think about things about sustainability, because a lot of times we may get cheaper products, but the cost of the cheaper product in terms of to the people who produce it, the workers and so on. And these are things that I think we need to educate our people so that they may appreciate why buying things here locally will be more, ethical and more moral and all of that. In addition to that, I remember when there was a conversation years ago over same poultry industry thing. The then advisor to either CARICOM or Grenada, the WTO, was stressing the issue of special and differential treatment in terms of, like, for a country like Grenada and some small, operations. And I think that if we're going to invite so-called foreign investors or whoever it is, we should consider that. And in a lot of ways, I'm in agreement with the gentleman. There's certain things that, we just can't close our eyes without looking into, and I think that's one of the main problems. We do things without understanding the deeper complexities of it. And so it is good that our farmers are trying to produce things. The other thing about it is I remember as a journalist in the 80s, when a certain feed-producing entity here called a press conference, there was a question I asked then, and I'm told it has not been resolved yet. And they were boasting that they have some new product on the market and things. So I asked the question, does it include any ingredients from Grenada? And the flat answer was no. After so many years, if we don't use the local ingredients here to produce things for feed, it must be expensive. It's like in farming. It must be expensive. Because if you have to import all the stuff, all the ingredients to make the food or make the feed, it's going to be expensive, and people need to understand that. And so we have to also convince our people that sometimes we need to pay a little extra to ensure that we are healthy, that everybody have a little piece in the cake. Not that we individually trying to get a cheaper thing, like how people try to get cheap clothes at the expense of the people in Bangladesh, or cheap art at the expense of people in Haiti.
Okay, sir.
I'll just try to sort out ways that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well received. Jason?
Yes, well, the caller is absolutely right. Again, the reality for us is that we can never expect that the cost of production here in Grenada to ever be marginally competitive to what will happen in a larger country, including having them shipping their product to us. The reality is that the scales of production comes into place, and that's just an economic reality. So we have to have a certain understanding that or the cost of local meat will always be at a premium, but we can lower the current cost through various mechanisms. But that is the conversation that we are currently having. We have already started those conversations, and we're being very hopeful that it will be a situation where we can see it being resolved sooner than later. Yes, we are in that way.
A comment coming via social media says, my friend, let's focus on the cost of production, which is what we just highlighting. He said, since we pattern most of what we do with America, the government should step in like the U.S. government does for its farmers. At the end of the day, it's all about and should always be about protecting the local industry. 435-2041, that is the number on the inside. We have a caller on the line. Classic, good morning, you're live.
Good morning, sir. I have to laugh. I had a big laugh this morning. You see the cost of meat will be going up, and it's going up. So the butchers can't compete right now. Well, that had to happen because the government I think the government already doing that. The government creating the environment for the price to go up. As a livestock farmer, right, in the Southern Swayze area, from my generation, my grandfather take care of animals all his life. I'm a second generation. And together, me and the minister, we come up with a plan to bring water in Southern Swayze for the animals only, because of the sulfur spring and the river run through there. And the plan was in place. Lo and behold, farmers from all over the area come down there and plowing in front of cows, I've been there grazing pasture grass for much years now, and planting short crop, and then killing out our animals. So when livestock farmers go out of business, then the meat price will be going up because the butchers can't get animals to buy. They have to travel and go St. Vincent and get animals.
So I guess at the end of the day, so you're saying the overarching concern is that of structure. And
the government has no structure in place. The government have no structure in place. The government has no structure in place for farmers. It's like a big joke.
Thank you very much, sir. He's contending, lack of structure, que sera, whatever would be. No active interest for the local industry.
Well, I would not say that I agree that there's no structure. What I would say is that
a structure that at least seeks the interest, a viable structure that seeks to protect the interests of the local network.
Right, and that is where the poultry policy in its incarnation is really designed to cover these areas, because it is really it deals with structure, it deals with the guidelines that is going to send how things are to be done and who's to do what and where we're to go for different things. So that is the whole process here. But until we get it implemented updated and implemented, we will still be in a state of chaos where literally it is every man for himself.
But is there a timetable? Is there a timetable, Mr. President, for the updating of that? Because as you said, without the policy literally is what's going to guide. In terms of conversation, is there a timetable that is established so that at least you could say to a farmer, listen, hold strain still, maybe in the interim, but what is the plan for the policy?
Yes, so we have engaged the ministry, we have engaged our senator with regards to the movements forward for that. And of course, as with everything goes, we can engage, but we have to also await responses, and the government mechanism has to be put into place. I do know that there's a willingness on the part of the government to have things done and fast-track to get it implemented. Of course, you have to appreciate that this is a very complex issue. It is not just, as we say, lap and cut, or just cut and go through. This has a lot of implications for everyone involved and serious implications for the nation. So these are things that, though in the immediate, we are working on immediate structures to help guide everyone, But this is something that we can look forward within the next 6 months to a year to see something more significant that is done, that goes through all the various stages for the lawyers and everyone to give their opinions and everything, and for us to have something that government could then say, look, we are going to implement this as law, we're going to have this body in charge of this and that sort of thing. So we are working, I must say, everyone is on the same page. It's just that we have to get it done correctly. So there are some things you cannot just rush. There are some things that it will take a bit of time, but it will be for the better of all. And
but you would agree, it's not a matter of rushing, but it's a matter of expediting the process that needs some fire to be lit on. Because in the meantime, while we're going through all of the red tape and the bureaucracy, you have household, families, the industry is suffering. And sooner rather than later, it would be no more.
Of course. And that is why, as an organization, we are reorganizing ourselves. We are revamping. I take no bones in saying that, we have taken us very deep in a look at ourselves, and we have found that we have been wanting. We have been lacking in many areas, and we have started adjusting. We have started the process of getting our ducks in a row, and we are very serious about the movements that we're making. And this is not just the interest of...
Classic, good morning. You're live. A question, please. Go ahead.
Good morning, Joe, and good morning, Mr. Phillip. It's very ironic, I would say even baffling, that within 2 months of the government bragging so much in the budget about the bright future for poultry farming in Grenada, with a number of new, larger entities coming on stream, and we're hearing something like this. And as Mr. Phillip mentioned, at a time when there is a glut in the market. So, our ministers or politicians or negotiators, are they so naive or just so impotent that they can't stand up for our farmers and our producers? We can't get honey right next door to Trinidad. Why? And why then do we have to? We seem to always be the ones who are stepped upon. Our ladder seems to be the lowest. And in terms of the cost, yes, cost is an issue. Quality has also been looked at. And there are also social costs that we have to bear in mind, not just the price of the thing on the shelf. But one of the greatest solutions for high cost of production is increased production. And as it is made clear before, if you have a smaller scale of production, your cost will always be higher per unit. So what the government should have done was seek permission from CARICOM to either change the bond rate or have a temporary moratorium on the importation of poultry from even the region, to allow our new poultry producers to get on stream and to get the volumes to a level where the production costs can be lowered and be able to compete before we unleash competition on them again. So they're doing just the reverse of what should be done.
Thank you very much, sir.
You're most welcome.
5 minutes onto the hour, Mr. Phillip. We're getting ready to wrap. Your rebuttal to your thoughts on the caller's comment, and then we get into summary mode.
Yes, well, I think the caller was spot on, and I think his words are as clear can be. I am just in full agreement with what was said, because these are things that I have also said myself. The realities for us are the realities, and there's no way of sugarcoating it. I do have confidence in our leadership. I do have the belief that change can happen, and it can happen rapidly. We strongly and most diligently look for those changes to come in a very quick manner. And we will continue to do our part. We will continue to rally our farmers, and we will continue to see this organization and see our industry grow. What I can guarantee the nation of Grenada is that the poultry industry for Grenada will be successful. It will be successful. We will meet all the demand. We will one day export chicken out of Grenada to other countries. This will be a reality. We just need to have the full working support of all involved so that we can make this a reality within the next 5 to 10 years. And I do believe that there's more than enough resources to support all who want to become producers in Grenada. In summary, however, I want to also take the opportunity to highlight that we have been focused so heavily on production. This is not the only area in the poultry industry where we need to have focus. We do not need to have 10, 15, 20 large producers and everyone struggling to get their product into the same market space. We only have so much. We want to also encourage value added. Persons can come up with various mechanisms that can use the product and that we can ship it further afield. We have to take the examples of countries like Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, where canning of their production allows them to access markets that traditionally they could not have. So when we see brands like Grace, and we see the chicken Vienna sausages, and we see the luncheon meats, and we see all of those things that come from Brazil and those other places, we are not limited, and those facilities are not have to be ginormous facilities to really exist. We can have very, very, very good canning facilities. We can have facilities that can turn out very high quality product and can fetch a premium price on the international market. I want to take this opportunity to urge persons that as part of the value chain in the poultry industry is value-added products. And in more so, if we were to have that, we will not be talking always about how do we get raw chicken into the local market, but also how do we get processed chicken products into the local, regional, and international market.
Thank you very much, Jason. It's a conversation that would continue on, and certainly I'm hoping that you and I will continue the conversation so as to sensitize it in individuals as to exactly the way forward. Indeed, it should be all hands on deck collectively, and all efforts should be made at protecting at any cost the local industry. Folks, this is the wrap on To The Point. My guest this morning was president of the Grenada Poultry Association, Jason Phillip. Jason, as always, thanks for accepting the invitation to be here on the platform. All the best to you, comrade. 2 minutes on to the hour of 10 o'clock. 2 minutes on to my brain just went on to something else. 2 minutes on to the hour of 10 o'clock. Indeed, that's why I say goodbye to you for now, Grenada. And when I say goodbyes, in the context that Blossom is going to be back next week on the morning show. Good morning, Grenada. So as such, I revert to my substantive shift, which is the mid-morning. So normally I would be getting ready to come on after Blossom. It was a pleasure being here with you for the last 3 weeks. Always indeed. Continue to locked into Classic 105.5, 105.9. We are the nation's choice. We are number one. We do not compete. Plain and simple. And again, for all of our listeners, GBN number one with you anywhere and everywhere. Have a great one, Grenada. So long until